I expected tears of joy. Instead, she tore it to pieces and sneered, "You faked this pregnancy to trap my son and steal his $10 million inheritance." I was frozen in shock, but what she did next was pure madness. Before anyone could react, she lunged forward and shoved me off the high hotel terrace, screaming that she would prove to the world my pregnancy was a scam. The wind rushed past my ears, followed by a sickening crash, intense pain, and then absolute darkness. As the ambulance sirens faded out, my husband's family thought they had successfully buried their dirty little secret. But they made one fatal mistake. I survived. Follow my story until the end and where my voice has reached. Because 6 months later, the real nightmare for them is just beginning. My name is Laura, and at 27 years old, I learned exactly how cheap human life becomes when $10 million is on the line. I grew up in a modest apartment, the daughter of a hardworking schoolteacher. So when I married Julian, his family's immense wealth felt like a completely different universe. But that universe was ruled by a tyrant, my mother-in-law, Victoria. To her, I was nothing more than a street rat who had managed to sneak her way into high society. The tension boiled over during a high-stakes family dinner held at an upscale hotel penthouse on J Street, arranged specifically to celebrate Julian's newly unlocked $10 million inheritance trust fund. Victoria sat at the head of the table like a queen, her diamond rings clinking against her crystal glass, her sharp eyes tracking my every move with absolute disgust. Hoping to finally break the ice and bring some genuine joy to the cold room, I took a deep breath, smiled, and proudly handed her my first ultrasound photo. I was radiant, glowing with happiness, and holding the definitive proof of our upcoming miracle right there in my hands. But the moment Victoria's eyes locked onto the black and white image, her face contorted into pure malice. She slammed her fist on the mahogany table, stood up, and shrieked so loudly the entire restaurant went silent. "You pathetic gold digger. You fabricated these medical records. You faked this entire pregnancy just to trap my son and secure a permanent claim to his millions." The ringing of Julian's phone shattered the heavy silence following Victoria's explosive outburst. He excused himself to step inside the restaurant and take the urgent business call, completely leaving me isolated on the hotel terrace with a raging monster. The night air was crisp, but my skin was burning with humiliation. I walked toward the edge of the terrace, trying to catch my breath and shield myself from her venomous gaze. Victoria followed me out, her heavy footsteps echoing like a death march on the stone tiles. "Did you really think I would let a fraud like you dilute our family bloodline?" she hissed, backing me up against the low decorative railing. I held my stomach defensively, begging her to calm down for the sake of the baby. But my words only fueled her madness. "You want us to believe you?" she sneered, her eyes glittering with cold calculation. "Let's see what real physical proof you have." Before I could even scream for Julian, Victoria lunged forward with terrifying strength. Her hands slammed into my shoulders, violently throwing me backward over the terrace railing. The wind rushed violently past my ears as I plummeted through the air, completely helpless. I crashed heavily through a canvas awning on the lower level, which broke my fall just enough to save my life, before hitting the concrete landscaping below. As absolute darkness closed in, Victoria's voice echoed from above, screaming down that a fake pregnancy wouldn't survive a fall anyway. The sterile, blinding white lights of the hospital wing burned my eyes as I slowly drifted back into consciousness. My body felt heavily bandaged, a map of agonizing pain radiating from my broken ribs and fractured limbs. But the physical torment was nothing compared to the crushing void inside my chest. A kind-eyed doctor stood over my bed, his face twisted in solemn sympathy as he delivered the devastating news. While I had miraculously survived the plunge, the violent impact had caused a heartbreaking, permanent pregnancy loss. My baby was gone. When Julian finally walked into the room, tears streamed down my face. I grabbed his hand, my voice cracking as I tried to tell him the horrifying truth, that his own mother had deliberately pushed me off that hotel terrace. But Julian pulled his hand away, refusing to meet my eyes. To my utter horror, I realized Victoria had already deployed her immense wealth to erase her crime. During the hours I was unconscious, she had bought off the hotel security guards, completely wiped the digital CCTV footage of the terrace, and smoothly convinced Julian that I had simply tripped over the long hem of my evening dress in a clumsy accident. Julian looked down at me, his expression a mix of synthetic pity and deep discomfort. Blinded by family loyalty and his mother's manipulation, he begged me not to make false, hysterical allegations that would ruin his family's high society reputation. He chose her millions over my shattered life. Looking into my husband's hollow eyes, the realization hit me with brutal clarity. I was completely alone. If I kept screaming the truth, Victoria would use her power to lock me away in a psychiatric ward, and Julian would gladly hand her the keys. So, I forced my face into a mask of broken compliance. I nodded quietly, whispering that maybe I had just tripped over my dress, pretending to accept their toxic, clumsy accident narrative just to ensure my survival. Once they knew I was no longer a legal threat, the claws came out fully. Victoria wasted no time forcing me out of the family estate, claiming that a traumatized woman needed space to heal. Julian stood by silently as I was cut off financially from every joint account, left with absolutely nothing but my physical scars while his mother openly celebrated her absolute victory over the gold digger. But Victoria's arrogance blinded her to the cracks in her own foundation. 2 weeks after I was discarded, Julian's younger, estranged brother, Leo, secretly reached out to meet me at a quiet diner. Outraged by his family's sickening cruelty and tired of his mother's tyranny, Leo slid a flash drive across the table. He revealed that Victoria's expensive fixers had been sloppy. Before they completely wiped the hotel's main servers, Leo had quietly extracted a duplicate digital backup of the terrace footage. The entire horrific assault was captured in perfect, undeniable clarity. Holding that small flash drive in my hand, I felt the last lingering pieces of my grief harden into a cold, unbreakable resolve. I wasn't going to just file a police report and let Victoria's high-priced defense attorneys tie the case up in messy, private settlement negotiations for years. No, she had tried to publicly destroy my character before destroying my life, so her downfall had to be just as public, absolute, and unmaskable. Armed with the undeniable video evidence of the assault and a paper trail Leo helped me uncover showing Victoria bribing medical staff to falsify my admission records, we spent months quietly building a bulletproof legal trap. We carefully documented every transaction, every silenced witness, and every lie they had spun to protect their precious reputation. We waited with agonizing patience, letting them believe they had completely gotten away with it, until the perfect opportunity presented itself, the exact 6-month anniversary of my fall. On this night, Julian and Victoria were hosting a massive, high-profile charity gala to launch their brand new $10 million family foundation. It was the event of the season, drawing hundreds of elite high society guests, business partners, and influential media reporters. Victoria would be at her absolute peak, soaking in the admiration of the city, completely unaware that I had meticulously planned my uninvited entrance to pull the rug out from under her entire world. The heavy double doors of the grand ballroom swung open, and the ambient chatter of 300 elite high society guests vanished instantly. I walked into the crowded room, my head held high, completely recovered, calm, and commanding. I wore a striking crimson dress that stood out brilliantly against the monochrome tuxedos and elegant gowns of the elite crowd. Victoria, who was standing on the elevated stage holding a glass of champagne, froze mid-sentence. Her face contorted with instant fury as she gestured frantically toward her private security guards to have me thrown out of the building immediately. "Get that delusional gold digger out of my sight," she snarled into the microphone, her voice echoing sharply across the ballroom. But before the security guards could even reach my position, Leo initiated our trap. He overrode the ballroom's main media console from his laptop, cutting the audio feed and instantly overriding the presentation screens. Suddenly, the massive projector screens behind Victoria flickered to life, displaying the raw, high-definition hotel terrace footage in perfect clarity. The entire room gasped in collective horror as the video clearly showed Victoria violently shoving her pregnant daughter-in-law over the balcony railing. Below the video, a scrolling layout displayed the digitized bank transfers and signed receipts proving her extensive bribery of hotel staff and medical examiners. Victoria's high-priced corporate lawyer turned completely pale, dropping his glass onto the marble floor as he realized there was absolutely no legal defense for what had just been revealed. The carefully constructed facade of the prestigious family shattered into a million pieces in front of the entire city's media. Before the video even finished playing, police officers flooded the gala floor. Victoria was handcuffed and arrested right then and there, facing severe criminal charges for aggravated assault, corporate cover-ups, and tampering with evidence. Because her illegal bribes used company funds, the federal authorities instantly froze the entire $10 million estate, launching a massive investigation into their businesses. Julian was left utterly ruined, his reputation destroyed, and his wealth gone overnight. He fell to his knees, begging me for forgiveness and crying that he had been manipulated by his mother. I didn't say a single word. I simply dropped our finalized divorce papers onto his lap and walked away without looking back. 3 months later, I moved to a beautiful, peaceful coastal town to rebuild my life, completely independent and free from their toxicity. What would you have done if your own husband believed a malicious lie over your which city you are watching from, and click on the next video on your screen for more jaw-dropping stories.